Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching.
14 months ago, Richard Richmond was killed. He was only 19 years old, hunted for sport on an alien world called Quiet Morning. They chased him for 4 days, let him run until his legs gave out, and when they finally cornered him at the edge of a cliff, they killed him on camera and broadcast his death to millions of paying viewers across the galaxy. His father, Samuel Richmond, watched him die on camera. He didn't scream, didn't cry. He made a decision. He spent the next 12 months preparing, learning everything about the Verith, studying their hunting operation, their planet, their methods. Then he traveled to a frontier colony, walked into the right bar, and let the traffickers take him. Samuel was dropped onto the same planet, the same jungle, the same hunters. They expected him to run. He didn't. In 3 days, he killed 2 of them, made it look like accidents. The hunters are starting to realize something is wrong. But it's already too late. The hunt has been reversed. The observation ridge was quiet. Too quiet. Tracker Ven cycled through communication frequencies for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. Static. Nothing but static. Dren should have reported by now, he said. Korvax stood at the edge of the platform, staring into the jungle below. His arms were crossed. His posture was still, controlled. But Ven had worked with him for 6 seasons. He could see the tension in the pack leader's shoulders. Korvax was worried. He was hiding it, but he was worried. "How long since his last check-in?" Korvax asked. 4 hours. He was tracking the human, the one who doesn't run. Brennan was tracking him too. Neither of them said what that meant. Ven pulled up the drone feeds on his display. 18 cameras sweeping the jungle in overlapping patterns. They showed trees, streams, volcanic vents, wildlife. No sign of Dren. No sign of the human. "He's using our blind spots," Ven said. "The gaps between camera sweeps. He's mapped our coverage and he's living in the spaces we can't see." Korvax turned to face him. His eyes were hard. "You're saying he's smart?" "I'm saying he's not behaving like prey." "Then what is he?" Ven hesitated. The answer sat in his throat like a stone. "I don't know, but Brennan is dead. Dren isn't responding. And this human walked into the jungle 3 days ago like he owned it." He paused. "Something is wrong, Korvax." Korvax held his gaze for a long moment. Then he turned back to the jungle. "Send Sulk and Matic. Together. Full combat protocol. And if they find the human, then they kill him. And if they find Dren..." Korvax's voice hardened. "Then we'll know what we're dealing with." Ven nodded. "And you?" "I'll coordinate from here. Monitor the feeds. If that human so much as twitches in front of a camera, I'll have his position in seconds." Ven left and relayed the orders. On the ridge, the remaining hunters prepared to move. Sulk checked his light spear twice, a nervous habit he'd developed over 6 seasons of hunting. Matik loaded extra charge packs, his movements sharp and efficient. Neither of them spoke. The easy confidence of the hunt's first days was gone. Something else had taken its place. Not fear, not yet, but the beginning of it. The first cold whisper that maybe, just maybe, they had underestimated their prey. They descended into the jungle. Behind them, Korvax watched the feeds and waited. They found Dren's body 2 hours later. Sulk spotted it first, a shape in the undergrowth near a stream, half hidden by vegetation. He signaled Matic, and they approached in combat formation, weapons raised, eyes scanning every shadow. The body was a mess. Claw marks across the torso, bite wounds on the throat and shoulders, equipment scattered in a wide radius, consistent with a violent struggle. Dren's light spear was missing, but his scanner lay nearby, cracked but intact. "Predator attack," Matik said. His voice was flat, unconvinced. Sulk crouched beside the body, examining the wounds. He'd seen predator kills before, hundreds of them. The jungle was full of things that killed and ate whatever they could catch. Something was wrong. "The wounds are right," he said slowly. "Spacing, angle, depth, all consistent with a thornback attack. But..." Sulk pointed at the ground. "No thornback tracks. They're heavy. They leave marks. And look at the blood pattern. It flows toward the stream, but the body was dragged away from it. Thornbacks don't do that. They eat where they kill." Matik's grip tightened on his light spear. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this was staged." The word hung in the air between them. Staged. Prey didn't stage kills. Prey didn't set traps. Prey didn't systematically eliminate hunters one by one and make it look like accidents. But something was doing exactly that. Sulk activated his communication device. "Pack leader, we found Dren. Status? Dead. Made to look like a predator attack, but the scene doesn't add up. I think..." Sulk stopped, swallowed, forced himself to say the words. "I think the human did this." Silence on the channel, then Korvax's voice, cold and sharp. "Explain." "The trap that killed Brennan. Now this. It's not luck, Korvax. It's not coincidence. He's hunting us." More silence. When Korvax spoke again, his voice had changed. The dismissive arrogance was gone, replaced by something harder. "Return to the ridge, both of you. No more splitting up. We regroup and reassess." "Understood." Sulk and Matik exchanged glances. Neither said what they were both thinking. That regrouping was an admission of something none of them wanted to admit. They were being hunted. By prey. Samuel watched them go. He was 200 meters away, concealed in a rock formation overlooking the stream. He'd been there the whole time, motionless, waiting to see how they reacted to his handiwork. They were scared. Good. Fear made people stupid, made them cluster together, seek safety in numbers, abandon the tactics that made them effective. The Verath were pack hunters, but their packs worked best when spread out, coordinating, covering multiple angles. Bunched together, they lost their advantage. Samuel was counting on that. He watched Sulk and Matik retreat toward the ridge, moving fast, checking over their shoulders every few seconds. The confidence was gone from their movements. They walked like prey now. 4 hunters left: Korvax, Sulk, Matik, and Ven. But he was support. Drone operator. Tracker. In a direct confrontation, he'd be the weakest link. But Sulk and Matik were experienced shooters, dangerous in a fair fight. Samuel had no intention of fighting fair. And then there was Korvax, the pack leader, the one who'd supervised Richard's death, the one who'd laughed while a 19-year-old boy died screaming in front of millions of viewers. Samuel had saved him for last. He shifted position, easing cramped muscles, keeping his movements slow and controlled. The afternoon heat was building, the jungle transitioning from merely oppressive to actively hostile. Steam rose from the volcanic vents, and the air tasted like sulfur and rot. The hunters would regroup on the ridge. They'd fortify their position, stick together, wait for their prey to make a mistake. Samuel wouldn't make a mistake. He would wait, watch, learn their new patterns, find the gaps, and then he would take them apart. On the observation ridge, the mood had changed. Korvax stood at the central display, studying the terrain maps, the drone feeds, the communication logs. Ven worked the tracking station in silence, cycling through frequencies, checking for any sign of their quarry. Sulk and Matik had returned 20 minutes ago. They stood near the perimeter, weapons ready, eyes on the jungle below. No one was watching the remaining human prey anymore. The broadcast had shifted focus. Instead of hunting footage, the viewers were now watching a different kind of drama. The hunters themselves, confused and off balance, 2 of their number dead under mysterious circumstances. The ratings were through the roof. Korvax didn't care about ratings. He cared about the human who was making fools of his pack. "Show me everything," he ordered Ven. "Every drone feed from the past 3 days. The blind spots, every gap in coverage." Ven pulled up the data. Holographic displays filled the air, showing patrol routes, camera angles, coverage maps. The blind spots were highlighted in red, small gaps where the drone patterns didn't overlap, brief windows where a careful observer could move unseen. There were dozens of them. "He's been mapping us," Ven said quietly, "learning our patterns, using our own system against us." Korvax studied the display. The cold feeling in his chest was spreading. He'd hunted humans for years, dozens of them. They ran, they hid, they begged and screamed and died. That was the natural order. This one was different. This one didn't run because he wasn't prey. He was a predator wearing prey's skin. "What do we know about him?" Korvax asked. "Background, training, anything?" Ven checked the file. "Captured on Kepler's Reach. Listed occupation. Hunting guide. Origin planet. Earth. No military flags." Hunting guide. Korvax made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. He hunts animals on his home world? Apparently. What kind of animals? Ven searched the database, pulled up information on Earth, on its ecosystems, on its apex predators. Large mammals mostly. Bears, wolves. Some of them weigh several hundred kilograms. They have claws, teeth, strength far beyond human capability. And humans hunt these creatures? Successfully? According to this, yes. For thousands of years. They track them, trap them, kill them with primitive weapons. It's considered a sport. Korvax stared at the display. Humans. Soft, fragile, weak humans. Hunting creatures that could tear them apart with a single blow. Not because they were stronger. Because they were smarter. Because they were patient. Because they learned. "We underestimated him," Korvax said. The words tasted like poison. "What do we do?" Korvax turned to face his remaining hunters. Sulk and Matic, veterans both, loyal and capable. Ven, the tracker, the eyes of the pack. 4 against 1. The odds were still in their favor. They had technology, weapons, knowledge of the terrain. The human was alone, outnumbered, operating with salvaged equipment and improvised tactics. "We changed the game," Korvax said. "No more passive hunting, no more waiting for him to make mistakes. We go on the offensive. We flush him out. We corner him. And we kill him." Sulk nodded. Matik checked his weapon. Ven hesitated. "How?" "He knows our patterns. He's already in our blind spots." "Then we eliminate the blind spots, new drone configurations, overlapping coverage, no gaps. And we don't chase him through the jungle. We draw him to us." "How?" Korvax smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "There's one other human still alive out there. We find him. We put him somewhere visible. And we wait." Bait. The oldest hunting tactic in the galaxy. Korvax was done underestimating his prey. Samuel saw the drones change pattern at sunset. He was positioned on a ridge overlooking the hunter camp, concealed in a rocky outcropping that provided both cover and sight lines. Through the scope of Dren's salvaged scanner, he could see the observation platform, the 4 remaining Veroth, the equipment stations flickering with holographic displays. They were adapting. The drone patterns had shifted from standard sweeps to overlapping grids. The blind spots he'd been exploiting were disappearing one by one, filled by redirected camera coverage. They were learning from their mistakes. Good hunters. Not good enough. Samuel watched them work through the evening, noting positions, counting weapons, tracking movement patterns. The pack leader, Korvax, moved with authority but also with tension. He knew he was being hunted now, knew his pack was vulnerable. Fear changed people, made them aggressive, made them dangerous, but also made them predictable. Korvax would come for him now. No more waiting, no more passive hunting. He'd push the offensive, try to regain control. Samuel was counting on it. He settled deeper into his concealment and watched the stars emerge above the jungle canopy. Alien constellations, unfamiliar patterns, light years from the skies he'd grown up under. Richard had seen these same stars, had watched them from hiding, probably. Terrified and alone, wondering if anyone would come to help him. No one had. Samuel closed his eyes briefly, let the old pain wash through him. Then he opened them again and returned his attention to the camp below. 3 hunters to go through, then Korvax. He could take his time, be patient, pick them off one by one, or he could end this faster. The hunters were clustering together now. Defensive formation, safety in numbers. But numbers meant a single target. Samuel began to plan. Marcus Fell had survived 9 days. 9 days of running, hiding, drinking from streams that burned his throat, eating things that made his stomach cramp. 9 days of listening to the jungle scream around him, waiting for the moment when the hunters would finally corner him. That moment had come. They'd found him at dawn, huddled in a hollow beneath a fallen tree. He'd heard them coming, but had nowhere to run. The jungle behind him was impassable, a wall of thorns and volcanic rock. The hunters had simply walked up, stunned him with some kind of pulse weapon, and dragged him out like a rabbit from a hole. Now he was staked in a clearing. Metal pins through his clothing, anchoring him to the ground. Not painful, not yet, but he couldn't move, couldn't run, could only lie there and stare at the alien sky while camera drones circled overhead like vultures. "Please," he said. His voice was raw, cracked from days of thirst and fear. "Please, I have a family, children. They're waiting for me on—" Quiet. The hunter standing over him was tall, lean, with gray-brown skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the morning light. He wore some kind of rank insignia on his chest. The leader, Marcus assumed. "Your family is irrelevant," the hunter said. His voice came through a translator, flat and artificial. "You are bait now. Nothing more." Bait. Marcus felt the word hit him like a physical blow. Bait for what? The hunter smiled. It was not a human expression, not really, but Marcus recognized the cruelty in it. "For the one who hunts us." Korvax stepped back from the staked human and surveyed the clearing. It was perfect. Open ground, 50 meters in every direction. No cover, no concealment, no blind spots. 12 camera drones hovered at various altitudes, providing overlapping coverage from every angle. Motion sensors lined the perimeter. Thermal scanners tracked anything larger than a rodent. If the hunting human approached, they would see him coming. "You think he'll take the bait?" Ven asked. The tracker stood at the edge of the clearing, monitoring his portable display. "He's human," Korvax said. "They have a weakness for their own kind. Pack bonding, they call it. Even when it makes no tactical sense, they try to protect each other. The reports from Brennan's interrogation suggested this one is different. Cold, mission-focused. Different, perhaps, but still human." Korvax turned to face the jungle. "He's been hunting us for days, killing my pack one by one. He wants something. Revenge, probably. For someone we killed in a previous season." "How do you know?" "Because I've seen that look before. In the eyes of prey who've lost packmates. They stop running. They start fighting back. It never ends well for them, but they can't help themselves." Korvax paused. This one is more capable than most, but he's still driven by emotion, and emotion makes you predictable. Ven didn't look convinced, but he said nothing. On the ground, the staked human had started crying, soft, hopeless sounds that the microphones captured and broadcast to millions of viewers across 40 star systems. Korvax ignored him. The real prey was still out there, watching. Planning. Let him plan. The trap was set. Samuel watched from a ridge 2 kilometers away. Through the salvage scanner, he could see everything. The clearing, the staked man, the hunters positioned around the perimeter, the drones circling like mechanical birds of prey. It was a good trap. Professional. Well designed. The kind of trap a smart predator would set when it realized it was being hunted. Samuel had set similar traps himself, back in Alaska. Different prey. Same principle. You find what your target wants. You put it somewhere visible. You wait. The staked man was crying now. Samuel could see his chest heaving, his mouth moving. Begging, probably. Praying. Like Richard had begged, had prayed. Samuel lowered the scanner. He couldn't save everyone. He'd learned that lesson already, with Eric. The mission came first. The mission was bigger than one man, bigger than one life. If he walked into that clearing, he'd be dead in seconds. The hunters would kill him, kill the bait, and continue their operation for another decade. Millions more would die. Richard would have died for nothing. But Samuel raised the scanner again, looked at the staked man, looked at the fear on his face, the desperation, the hope that someone might come for him. That hope was misplaced. No one was coming. No one could come. Not into that kill zone. Unless... Samuel shifted his focus from the clearing to the ridge beyond it. The observation platform where the hunters had established their base. Power conduits running up from the volcanic vents below. Communication arrays. Drone control stations. The brain of the operation. Kill the brain, and the body would follow. Samuel began to plan. The afternoon heat pressed down on the observation ridge like a physical weight. Sulk sat on an equipment crate near the perimeter, cleaning his light spear for the 3rd time. The weapon didn't need cleaning. It was a nervous habit, something to do with his hands while his mind churned. 2 packmates dead, Brennan and Dren, both veterans, both careful, both killed by a single human who should have been easy prey. "You're going to wear through the casing," Matik said. The other shooter was standing nearby, watching the jungle below. Sulk grunted, better than standing still. "You think he'll come?" The pack leader seemed certain. "That's not what I asked." Sulk stopped cleaning, looked up at Matik. They'd hunted together for 4 seasons, knew each other's rhythms, each other's tells. Matik was scared. "I don't know," Sulk admitted. "This one doesn't behave like prey. He doesn't run when he should run, doesn't hide when he should hide. He sets traps, stages kill sites, moves through our blind spots like he was born here. Humans aren't supposed to do that. No, they're not." Silence stretched between them. "Do you ever wonder," Matik said slowly, "if we chose the wrong species to hunt?" Sulk didn't answer. He didn't have to. They both knew the answer was yes. On the far side of the ridge, Korvax stood alone. He was watching the sunset, the alien sun sinking toward the volcanic peaks, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. He'd watched thousands of sunsets from this ridge over the years. Each one marked the end of a hunt, the conclusion of another successful broadcast. This sunset felt different. Korvax had been hunting for 18 years, started as a young tracker, worked his way up through the pack hierarchy, earned his position through skill and ruthlessness. He'd killed more prey than he could count. Humans, Drellic, Yanari, a dozen other species deemed acceptable targets under galactic law. He'd never felt like prey himself. Until now, the human out there, the one who hunted his hunters, was unlike anything Korvax had encountered. Not stronger, not faster, not better equipped. but something else. Something that made Korvax's instincts twitch in ways they hadn't twitched since his first season as a tracker. The human was patient. That was the thing. Korvax had reviewed the footage, studied the patterns. The human didn't rush, didn't panic, didn't make emotional decisions. He watched, learned, adapted. He turned the hunter's own tactics against them, used the terrain they'd chosen as his weapon. He hunted like a Verath. No, better than a Verath, because a Verath would never have allowed himself to be captured, would never have walked willingly into a hunting preserve, would never have sacrificed everything for something as irrational as revenge. The human had done all of those things, which meant he was either insane or committed beyond anything Korvax could understand. Either way, he was dangerous. Pack leader. Ven's voice broke Korvax's contemplation. He turned. Report. The bait is secure. All sensors are active. Coverage is complete. Ven hesitated. But I've been reviewing the data from the past few days, the human's movement patterns. And? He's been scouting more than the clearing. I found traces of his passage near the northern approach, near the power conduits. Korvax felt something cold settle into his chest. The power conduits. Geothermal energy, drawn from the volcanic vents, converted to electricity to run their equipment. Drones, sensors, communications. Everything depended on that power supply. Show me. Ven pulled up a holographic display. Thermal traces, faint but present, along the ridge's northern slope. The path led directly to the primary power junction. He wasn't scouting the clearing, Korvax said slowly. He was scouting us. It appears so. He's not going to take the bait. No, I don't think he is. Korvax stared at the display. The cold feeling in his chest was spreading now, reaching his limbs, his extremities. Not fear, exactly, but something close. Respect, perhaps. The human had outthought him. Recall Sulk and Mathik, Korvax ordered. Full defensive positions around the power junction. If he wants to blind us, he'll have to go through all of us. And the bait? Korvax glanced toward the clearing. The staked human was still visible on the feeds, still crying, still hoping for rescue. Leave him. He's served his purpose. Ven nodded and relayed the orders. On the ridge, the hunters prepared for a different kind of battle. Samuel watched the hunters reposition. He was closer now, less than a kilometer from the power junction. The hunters were pulling back from the clearing, consolidating around the infrastructure. They'd figured it out, faster than he'd expected. The pack leader was smart, adaptive, a worthy opponent in another context. But it didn't matter. Samuel had planned for this, too. The direct approach to the power junction was blocked now. 4 hunters, dug in, waiting. A frontal assault would be suicide. Good thing Samuel had no intention of making a frontal assault. He'd spent the past 6 hours preparing. Not at the power junction, but around it, along the approaches. In the terrain the hunters would have to cross if things went wrong. 3 traps, simple but effective, deadfalls, tripwires, concealed pits. The same techniques that had killed Brennan, adapted for new positions. The hunters thought they were defending. They were actually trapping themselves. Samuel checked his equipment one final time. Light spear, fully charged. Trophy knife, sharp. Scanner, functional. Water, enough for 12 hours. Medical kit, just in case. He'd also prepared something special. The volcanic vents that powered the ridge weren't just energy sources. They were geological features, connected to the planet's unstable core. The geothermal activity created pressure buildups, usually vented through natural fissures in the rock. Usually. But if those fissures were blocked, the pressure would build, and eventually release somewhere else. Samuel had spent 2 hours blocking fissures. Not all of them, just enough. The pressure was building now, beneath the ridge, beneath the hunter's feet. It wouldn't cause an eruption, Nothing that dramatic. But it would create instability, tremors, shifts in the terrain, chaos. And in chaos, a single hunter could move unseen. The sun was setting. The sky burned orange and red above the volcanic peaks. Samuel checked his weapons one more time. Then he began to move. In the clearing, Marcus Fell had stopped crying. It wasn't acceptance. It wasn't peace. It was simply exhaustion. He'd screamed and begged and prayed until his throat was raw, until his voice gave out, until there was nothing left but the hollow certainty that no one was coming. He was going to die here. Staked to the ground like an animal, broadcast to millions, forgotten by everyone who'd ever known him. His children would never know what happened to their father. Marcus stared at the darkening sky and tried to remember their faces. Tried to hold on to something warm in the cold that was settling into his bones. The camera drone circled overhead, recording his despair for the entertainment of strangers. He closed his eyes and waited. Night fell on quiet morning. The jungle transformed. Daytime predators retreated to their dens, replaced by things that hunted in darkness. The sounds changed. Fewer bird calls, more clicking and chittering from creatures that navigated by echolocation. The temperature dropped, but only slightly. The humidity remained, pressing against everything like a wet blanket. On the observation ridge, the hunters waited. Korvax had positioned them carefully. Sulk at the primary junction, covering the main approach. Matik at the secondary conduit, watching the western slope. Ven at the control station, monitoring what sensors remained active. Korvax himself patrolled between positions, restless, unable to settle. The human was out there, watching, planning. Korvax could feel him. Anything? He asked Ven for the fourth time in an hour. Nothing. No movement on thermal. No triggers on the motion sensors. Ven paused. Maybe he's not coming. He's coming. How can you be sure? Korvax didn't answer. He didn't have a logical explanation. Just instinct. Honed over 18 years of hunting. The human was close. Korvax could feel it in his bones, in the way his skin prickled, in the subtle wrongness of the too quiet jungle. Something was about to happen. The first tremor hit at midnight. It was small. A vibration in the rock, barely perceptible. The kind of minor seismic activity that happened constantly on a volcanic world. But Korvax noticed. Ven, seismic readings. Ven checked his display. Frowned. Elevated activity in the northern sector. Pressure buildup in the geothermal system. Nothing critical. But, it's unusual. The vents should be releasing this pressure naturally. Something's blocking them. The cold feeling in Korvax's chest turned to ice. He's not attacking the power station, he said slowly. He's attacking the planet. The second tremor hit. Stronger this time. Equipment rattled on the ridge. Somewhere in the jungle below, something roared in alarm. All positions report! Korvax barked into his communicator. Sulk here, holding steady. Matik here. I felt it. What's happening? Before Korvax could answer, the third tremor hit. This one was different. The ground shifted beneath their feet. A crack appeared in the rock near the primary junction, steam hissing up from below. The drone control station flickered. Somewhere in the darkness, a section of the ridge collapsed, taking a sensor array with it. Chaos. Exactly as Samuel had planned. Samuel moved through the darkness like a ghost. The tremors covered his approach. Every vibration masked his footsteps. Every hiss of steam concealed his breathing. The hunters were distracted, focused on the geological chaos unfolding around them. They never saw him coming. He reached the perimeter in under 3 minutes, slipped past the motion sensors, now flickering and unreliable, avoided the camera drones, their patterns disrupted by the seismic activity. The power junction was 50 meters ahead. Samuel could see Sulk positioned there, light spear raised, scanning the darkness. The hunter was nervous, jumping at shadows. The tremors had rattled him. Good. Samuel circled wide, using the terrain for cover. A volcanic outcropping here, a fallen tree there. Each movement precise, economical, silent. 30 meters. 20. 10. Another tremor hit. Sulk stumbled, his attention snapping to the cracking ground beneath his feet. Samuel moved. On the observation ridge, Korvax heard Sulk scream. It lasted 2 seconds, maybe 3, then silence. "Sulk! Report!" Korvax shouted into his communicator. "Sulk! Nothing! Matik! Converge on the primary junction! Now!" Matik's voice came back, tight with fear. "On my way!" Korvax drew his light spear and sprinted toward the junction. The ground shook beneath him. Steam vented from new cracks in the rock. The world was falling apart, and somewhere in the chaos, the human was hunting. He reached the junction in under a minute. Sulk was dead. The body lay near the primary conduit, light spear still clutched in one hand. The killing wound was precise, a single thrust through the throat, severing the major vessels. Quick, clean, professional. No sign of the human. Matik arrived seconds later, breathing hard. He saw Sulk's body and went pale beneath his gray-brown skin. "Where is he?" Matik whispered. Korvax scanned the darkness. The tremors had stopped. The steam was settling. The jungle was quiet. Too quiet. "I don't know," Korvax admitted. "But he's close." The final phase of the hunt had begun. Ven knew he was going to die. He'd known it since the first tremor. Since Sulk's scream cut through the darkness and went silent. Since Korvax's voice came through the communicator, tight with something that sounded almost like fear. Ven had never heard Korvax afraid before. He sat at the control station, surrounded by flickering displays and dying equipment. Half the drone feeds were static. The seismic activity had damaged the power conduits, and the backup systems were failing one by one. The motion sensors were unreliable. The thermal scanners were glitching. He was blind. And somewhere in the darkness, the human was coming. Ven checked his sidearm for the 6th time. It was a light pistol, standard issue for support personnel. He'd fired it maybe 3 times in his entire career, always at targets, never at anything that could fight back. He wasn't a hunter. He was a technician. He watched screens and monitored data and let the real hunters do the killing. Now the real hunters were dying, and Ven was alone. "Korvax," he said into his communicator. "Korvax, please respond." "Static." "Matik." "Anyone?" "Nothing." Ven stood up. His legs were shaking. He needed to move, needed to find the others, needed to not be alone in this metal coffin waiting for death to find him. He took 2 steps toward the door. The lights went out. The hum of equipment died. The displays flickered once and went black. Even the emergency lighting failed, leaving Ven in absolute, perfect darkness. He couldn't breathe. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." A sound behind him. Ven spun, raising his pistol, firing blindly into the dark. The light pulses illuminated nothing but empty air, equipment racks, the far wall. Then a hand closed around his wrist. The grip was iron. Ven felt his bones grind together as the pistol was wrenched from his fingers. He tried to scream, but another hand clamped over his mouth, cutting off the sound. A voice in his ear. Quiet. Calm. Human. The control station. How do I destroy it permanently? Ven's mind went blank with terror. The hand over his mouth loosened slightly, just enough for him to speak. I don't... The grip on his wrist tightened. Something cracked. Pain exploded up Ven's arm, white-hot and blinding. "The control station," the voice repeated. Same tone, same calm, like asking about the weather. "How do I destroy it?" "The main processor," Ven gasped. "Behind the central console. Destroy that and everything goes down. Drones, communications, archives, everything. Archives? The broadcast recordings, everything we've filmed. It's all stored locally before upload. Silence. Then the hand released Ven's wrist. For one desperate moment, Ven thought he might live. Thought the human might spare him, might let him go, might show the mercy that prey was supposed to beg for. The knife entered his throat before he could finish the thought. Quick, clean, almost gentle. Ven slid to the floor, his blood pooling beneath him, his last sight the faint outline of a human shape moving toward the central console. Then nothing. Samuel found the main processor exactly where Ven had said. It was a black box, roughly the size of a small refrigerator, humming with residual power from internal batteries. Cables ran from it in every direction, connecting to displays, transmitters, drone control systems. The brain of the operation. Samuel studied it for a moment. Then he drew his light spear, adjusted the setting to maximum, and drove the blade directly into the processor's core. The effect was immediate. Sparks erupted from the casing. The hum turned to a whine, then a screech, then silence. Somewhere outside, Samuel heard the distant sound of drones falling from the sky, their control signals severed. The cameras were dead. The broadcast was over. Samuel pulled the spear free and wiped the blade on his sleeve. The control station was dark and silent around him, filled with the smell of burned circuitry and fresh blood. One target down. 2 remaining. Korvax heard the drones fall. A series of distant crashes scattered across the jungle as the machines lost bore and dropped from the sky. The sound was wrong, unnatural. Drones didn't just fall. They had redundant systems, backup power, emergency protocols. Unless someone had destroyed the control station. Ven, Korvax said into his communicator. Ven, report. Static. Mathik. Status. Matik's voice came back, tight with fear. I heard it too. The drones are down. All of them. What's happening? The human. He's taken out the control station. Ven? Not responding. Silence on the channel. Korvax looked around. The ridge was dark now, lit only by the faint glow of volcanic vents in the distance. Without the drones, without the sensors, they were operating blind. The human could be anywhere. Could be right behind them. Matek, converge on my position. We stay together. On my way. Korvax raised his light spear and scanned the darkness. His eyes were better than human eyes, adapted for low-light conditions, capable of seeing heat signatures. But the jungle was full of heat. Volcanic vents, warm-blooded creatures, residual energy from the seismic activity. The human was hiding in that noise. Korvax had never felt so vulnerable. 18 years of hunting, thousands of kills. He'd always been the predator, always been in control. Now he was standing in the dark, jumping at shadows, waiting for death to find him. This was what his prey felt. He understood that now. Korvax. Matik's voice again, closer this time. I'm approaching from the south, 50 meters out. I see you. Keep coming. A few moments later, Matik emerged from the darkness. His eyes were wide, his breathing rapid. He looked like prey. They both did. What do we do? Matik asked. Korvax didn't have an answer. The human had destroyed their infrastructure, killed their packmates, turned their hunting ground into a death trap. Every advantage they'd had was gone. All that remained was survival. We get off this ridge, Korvax said. Make for the extraction point. Call for emergency pickup. The communication array. There's a backup transmitter at the secondary site, 2 kilometers east. If we can reach it, we can signal for extraction. Matik nodded. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was something. They started moving. Samuel let them go. He watched from the shadows as Korvax and Matik descended from the ridge, heading east toward the secondary site. They moved in formation, covering each other, checking every shadow. Professional. Disciplined. Scared. Samuel didn't follow directly. He knew where they were going, knew the terrain better than they did now, after days of scouting and preparation. And he knew what was waiting for them. The trap was simple. A tripwire stretched across the game trail, connected to a weighted net. Not lethal on its own, but it didn't need to be lethal. It just needed to separate them. Divide and conquer. The oldest tactic in the book. Samuel circled wide, moving through the jungle on a parallel course. The volcanic vents provided landmarks, their faint glow visible through the canopy. The night sounds covered his movement. He reached the trap site 5 minutes before the hunters, and waited. Matik hit the tripwire at a full run. He'd been moving fast, too fast, fear overriding training. The wire caught his ankle and he went down hard, the weighted net deploying from the canopy above, tangling around his limbs. "Contact!" he screamed. "Korvax! Contact!" Korvax spun, light spear raised, searching for targets. He saw Matik on the ground, thrashing against the net, saw the tripwire glinting in the faint light. "Trap! Hold still," Korvax ordered. "I'll cut you free." He moved toward Matik, knife drawn. Something whistled through the air. Korvax felt the impact before he understood what had happened. A rock, baseball-sized, thrown with precision accuracy. It hit his knife hand, and the blade went spinning into the darkness. He raised his light spear, firing blindly into the jungle. The energy pulses lit up the night, illuminating trees, undergrowth, shadows. "No target! Show yourself!" Korvax roared. "Face me, coward!" Silence. Then another rock. This one hit his knee, the damaged one, the old injury from his first season. Korvax went down with a grunt of pain. "Korvax!" Matik was still thrashing, still trapped. "Korvax, help me!" Korvax tried to stand. His knee buckled. He fell again, catching himself on one hand, his light spear clutched in the other. A shape emerged from the shadows. The human. He was older than Korvax had expected. Weathered face, gray in his hair, calm eyes that reflected the faint volcanic glow. He held a light spear, one of theirs, taken from a dead hunter. He didn't look like prey. He looked like death. "Korvax," the human said. His voice was quiet, conversational. "Pack leader, 18 years of hunting, 47 human kills." Korvax stared at him. "How do you know that?" "Brennan told me, before he died." The cold in Korvax's chest spread to his entire body. "What do you want?" he asked. "Ransom. Freedom? Name your price." The human shook his head slowly. "There's no price. There's no negotiation. There's just you and me and the debt you owe." "Debt? What debt? I don't even know you." The human reached into his pocket, pulled out something small, a photograph, creased and worn from handling. He held it up so Korvax could see. A young human male, brown hair, nervous smile, standing in front of some kind of monument. Korvax didn't recognize him. Then he did. Last season. The finale. The boy who'd run for 4 days before they cornered him at the cliff. The one who'd talked about his father before he died. "My father will find you." "Your son," Korvax said. Not a question. A statement. The pieces falling into place. "Richard." The human's voice didn't change, didn't waver. His name was Richard. He was 19 years old. He was traveling with friends when your people took him. You hunted him for 4 days. You killed him on camera. You broadcast his death to millions. Korvax straightened slightly. Even with his knee screaming, even with his pack dead around him, he was still a pack leader. He would not grovel. "I remember him," Korvax said. "He ran well, lasted longer than most." "He did, and now you're here. For revenge." "Yes." Korvax studied the human. The calm eyes, the steady hands, the complete absence of hesitation. You planned all of this, let yourself be captured, mapped our operations, killed my hunters one by one. He paused. Impressive. For prey. I'm not prey. No, I see that now. Korvax tilted his head. But you're still just one human. You've had your revenge. My pack is dead. Walk away. Disappear into the jungle. I'll report you died in the hunt. No one will come looking. The human shook his head slowly. You think this is negotiable? Everything is negotiable. Not this. The human took a step closer. Richard wasn't content to me. He wasn't entertainment. He wasn't a number on your kill count. He was my son. My only son. Korvax held his ground. And killing me brings him back? No, nothing brings him back. The human's voice was flat, empty. But you don't get to live in a universe where he doesn't. Korvax raised his light spear. The human moved. Korvax fired. The energy pulse lit up the night, blazing toward the human's chest. It missed. The human had shifted at the last instant, reading the shot, dodging by centimeters. Before Korvax could fire again, the human was inside his guard, one hand clamping around his wrist, twisting the spear away. They struggled. Korvax was strong, but the human was precise, every movement designed to break leverage, to control. The spear clattered to the ground. Korvax threw a punch. The human caught it, redirected the momentum, swept Korvax's damaged knee out from under him. Korvax went down hard. He tried to rise. A boot pressed against his throat, pinning him to the ground. 4 days, the human said. Richard ran for 4 days. You've managed about 30 seconds. Korvax bared his teeth. Not a smile, a challenge. Then finish it, human. Prove you're a predator. I don't need to prove anything. The human looked down at him. No anger, no satisfaction. Just cold, absolute certainty. My son died far from everyone who loved him, but he knew something you didn't. The boot pressed harder. He knew I would come. Korvax looked up at the human standing over him, at the steady hands, the empty eyes. The human raised the light spear, Korvax's own weapon, taken from his hands. I'm not prey. I'm a hunter. The light spear came down. Samuel stood over Korvax's body for a long time. The jungle was quiet around him. The volcanic vents hissed in the distance. Somewhere, a nightbird called and received no answer. It was done. 14 months since he watched his son die. 12 months of preparation. 2 months of waiting to be captured. Days of hunting. All of it leading to this moment. This silence. Samuel felt nothing. He'd expected something. Relief, maybe. Satisfaction. Closure. The things people talked about when they talked about revenge. The catharsis of violence. The peace that came from balance restored. There was no peace. Richard was still dead. Nothing had changed that. Nothing would ever change that. Samuel had killed 6 hunters and destroyed their operation, and his son was still gone. The math didn't balance. It never would. Samuel turned away from Korvax's body and walked back toward the trap site. Matik was still alive. He'd stopped struggling, stopped screaming. He lay tangled in the net, his eyes tracking Samuel's approach with animal terror. Please, he whispered. Please, I have a family, a mate, children. Please don't. Samuel looked at him. He thought about Richard. Richard, who'd cried when he found injured birds in the backyard. Richard, who'd volunteered at animal shelters and talked about becoming a veterinarian. Richard, who'd had so much mercy in his heart. Richard would have seen the fear in this creature's eyes and felt compassion, would have cut the net and walked away, would have believed that mercy meant something, that sparing a life could change the universe in some small way. Samuel crouched beside the net. "My son," he said quietly. "He would have spared you. He had that kind of heart. Gentle, forgiving. He believed in second chances." Matic's eyes flickered with hope. Samuel drew his knife. "I'm not my son." The hope died. "I have nothing left inside me. Your people took it all when they took him." Matic tried to speak, tried to beg, tried to find words that would save him. Samuel didn't give him the chance. The knife was quick, cleaner than Matic deserved. But Samuel wasn't doing this for satisfaction. He was doing it because every hunter who'd participated in this operation needed to die. Every single one. Samuel cleaned the blade on Matic's clothing and stood. 6 hunters, all dead. The pack was finished. He turned and walked toward the clearing where they'd staked the last human. There was still one life he could save. The clearing was exactly as Samuel had last seen it. Marcus Fell lay staked to the ground, motionless. For a moment, Samuel thought he was dead. Then the man's chest rose and fell, shallow but steady, alive. Samuel knelt beside him and began pulling the metal pins from the ground. Marcus stirred, his eyes fluttering open, confusion and fear warring on his face. "Easy," Samuel said. "It's over." "Over?" Marcus's voice was a croak. "What do you mean, over?" "The hunters are dead. The cameras are down. No one's coming to kill you." Marcus stared at him. The information seemed to hit him in waves. First confusion, then disbelief, then something that might have been hope, fragile and terrified. "How?" he whispered. Samuel pulled the last pin free. "Doesn't matter. Can you walk?" Marcus tried to sit up. His arms shook. His legs wouldn't cooperate. 9 days of running, followed by hours staked to the ground. His body was broken. I don't think... Samuel pulled him upright, slung one of Marcus's arms over his shoulders, took the weight. "Lean on me. There's an extraction point. 2 kilometers east. Emergency transmitter. We can call for pickup." "Who are you?" Marcus asked. The question came out cracked, desperate. How did you... "My name is Samuel Richmond." "Thank you," Marcus said. The words came out thick with emotion. "Thank you. I was sure I was going to die. I thought no one was coming." Samuel didn't respond. They moved through the jungle slowly, Samuel supporting Marcus's weight, navigating by the faint glow of the volcanic vents. The night sounds surrounded them, clicks and chittering and distant roars. Normal sounds, jungle sounds, the sounds of a world that didn't care about human grief or alien cruelty, or the bodies cooling in the darkness behind them. They reached the extraction point as dawn broke. The secondary transmitter was intact, protected by its distance from the main ridge. Samuel activated it, sent a distress signal on the emergency frequency, and waited. Marcus had collapsed against a tree, unconscious or asleep. His breathing was steady. He would live. Samuel sat on a rock and watched the sunrise. The sky shifted from black to purple to orange to gold. The jungle transformed around him, night creatures retreating, day creatures emerging. Steam rose from the volcanic vents, catching the light, turning the world into something almost beautiful. Quiet morning. The name made sense now. This moment, this silence, this peace between the horrors of the night and the heat of the day. A quiet morning on a world designed for death. Samuel reached into his pocket. The photograph was worn, creased from handling, faded from being carried against his body for 14 months.